It was a pivotal weekend in the Six Nations as France downed Ireland to emerge as favourites to take the title this Saturday. Joining myself, Brendan and Nick to rehash the weekend as well as look ahead to Super Saturday, Wales and British and Irish Lions winger Alex Cuthbert. What's been your take on Wales' Six Nations so far? Because, I mean, certainly momentum wasn't exactly particularly high coming in. Some are saying there's a spring back in the step. I think certainly they'll be, seeing red this weekend and seeing hopefully an opportunity to make a genuine statement. But our feeling, I think, is that a statement hasn't quite been made yet.
No, not yet. I think, but what you've seen, I think the last two games is way more of an identity of what and how we're probably going to go forward as a team. And you can see what Matt Sherritt's done straight away. He's just gone to what are our strengths, So ball at the line out the back. We've got some speedsters who are looking to get to that second last and edges. Our kicking game probably wasn't great on the weekend, but it was good against Ireland. We won a lot of ball in the air. And our set piece has been a lot stronger, isn't it? So you're starting to see a little bit of an identity and then a spine of a team. So we get some continuity with the centres, front row, what things that we haven't had. There's been too many changes, isn't there? In the last 6, 15, 14 losses before that. So it's nice to get a bit of continuity, and it looks like the boys are really on the same page in terms of how they want to play. Once you got clarity, it brings confidence, and then it's a pretty simple game, really. If you've got a simple game plan and everyone's on the same page or striving for the same thing, it's mad what happens, isn't it, when you do that?
Yeah. I think that continuity thing's so important. You look at and I'm going to say that this isn't the strongest Ireland side we've seen in the past few years. I think that's probably true of a couple of years ago when they won the Grand Slam, but you could and probably still can predict 13 of their starters. Wales are actually, I think I'm right in saying, unchanged between the game against Ireland and the game against Scotland. You can't quite remember when the last time that happened is. I'd expect there won't be too many changes for this weekend. Will Griff-John he didn't necessarily have his best day, so they may look elsewhere in the front row. But, Alex, you can probably predict 11 or 12 pretty safely, which, again, you haven't been able to say for the last sort of 6 or 7 matches.
No, I think there was a mental stat. I think the last time Wales put the exact same team was like 4 years ago or something. It was berserk. So it's mad. So when you don't have that continuity in international rugby, you think you're only playing 5 Six Nations games, a couple of games in the summer, and then that's if your players are fit to have that continuity. And that's what Ireland have obviously done well. They've got that. They've had that same spine of the squad. The centres, your half-backs, second row, front row. That you have that spine through the team, and then you just build around that. And Wales, I think that there are a few changes this weekend. I know for a fact, obviously, with Tommy Rogers injured, so that'll be one winger changed. Front row, I think, like you said, I know Will Griff probably didn't have his greatest game, but I think in terms of as a set piece and how I think you got to he'll probably stay in. Maybe a change in the second row. I thought Teddy Williams came on, did really well off the bench, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's just our line out. We're not stealing enough line out as well. We're giving teams too easy starter plays off line out. So I think we've only stolen like 2 in the whole campaign. So it's not enough. So we need maybe more line out options. I love Tommy Raphael. I think he's an unbelievable 7, but you lose your line out option then when you don't have Wainwright or Teddy Williams or something like that in the back row. So may change around that option because we don't want to give England too much foothold in the game, especially that's their sort of go-to is.
Yeah, that's interesting. Nick, Will Griff-John must be your sort of player. I mean, his moustache rivals and probably eclipses yours.
Has he got a beard as well?
He doesn't have
He's got the whole shooting match, hasn't he? A bit like you, Ollie.
No. He's just rocking the top lip.
Listen, I mean, he's brought a stability to the Welsh scrum that hasn't been there. And I don't think that Kieran Asarati brings anything like that stability. So they need Griff-John's strength and stability at the scrum if they're going to be able to play off the base. And yeah, I think he's been a good addition. Obviously, it wasn't a great day for him last weekend, yellow and so on. But I think that just in terms of pure scrummaging, he has solidified the Welsh scrum. So yeah, my kind of player in that regard. Yeah, absolutely. And I suspect anybody, I mean, really, the idea of going in with a scrum that is going to cost you right across the script is something that I don't understand. The idea of picking ball playing props, if they cannot scrummage adequately to secure your ball, is a luxury you cannot afford.
Yeah. He was solid in the loose against Ireland, to be fair. I think he dropped a howler against the Scots at the weekend. He's also the only rugby player I can think of with 3 first names as his name, which I enjoy. So when he's playing, you've got Will, Griff, and John. So you essentially got a 17-man team. Let's look back at the weekend, guys. We'll go in order. Ireland, France. I think a slightly vindication for the podcast when we all backed France for the Grand Slam at the start of the tournament. Brendan, we sort of alluded to the fact that the French would have a performance. We didn't know whether they'd expended it against Italy, but I think they targeted a big game. It was that game, and for that 30-minute period where it was 36 unanswered points or something, they were
completely untouchable. Yeah. It's the slam that got away, isn't it? I mean, I'm assuming they are going to beat Scotland. Maybe that's a big assumption. I think they will beat Scotland. How they lost to England, who God knows how they lost to England, but they did. But they've looked world beaters in the last 2 matches. They've got world beating players. And a hat tip to Luku, who came on in difficult circumstances. And he always looks a great player for Bordeaux. I've never understood why he hasn't put it together for France yet, but he really put it together for France. And, they got Baptiste Saran can't even get in the squad. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the number 9s they've got. So that was good for the soul to see that. Wasn't so good for the soul to see the injury to Dupont, which I'm still raging about. How many times on this podcast have I highlighted Ireland's illegal work at the breakdown? No arms, flying in. That was no accident, that injury. I'm not saying it was deliberate, but it was no accident. Totally legal. He comes in off his feet, no arm tackle, not even looking. Wait, he looked at the player first, then puts his head down. That was an accident waiting. That was an injury waiting to happen. And the sort of cover-up over this injury, it doesn't do the game any good whatsoever. Ireland have been at it for 3 or 4 years, as we've highlighted many times, and this was always going to happen, an injury like that. He might not ever come back again. 2 ACLs. I don't know many players who come back after 2 ACLs as the player they were. So that's what's happened last Saturday, and it's disgraceful how it's been pushed to one side, kicked into the deep grass.
Is it the same? Is it the same knee, Bren? Do you know?
I don't think it is. No.
Okay. Well, then there's possibly a better chance, but
possibly, yeah.
Look, I mean, fundamentally, my point about it would be that the ruck is still a mess, and a dangerous mess when you consider what happened to Dupont. And I suppose I agree with the idea you can't just dismiss it as a rugby incident, because these sorts of incidents where people are getting their knees wrenched are pretty frequent now. And I think that if you look at the ruck technique that was involved, you've got people coming in, flying off their feet. You're meant to bind onto the opposition, and there were opposition there, so there was no attempt to bind, and really there was no attempt to keep the feet either. So there was no control, there was no drive over and hold. It was all about sealing off basically and disrupting the French ball completely. So I hate what has happened to the ruck. Bren and I and Chris Hewitt have all talked about the fact that the ruck as it was, although you got people sometimes occasionally getting opened up with studs, head wounds, overall, it was a much better contest than what we've got at the moment, where there's lots of illegalities. And because it's static, because you've got big men coming into static situations, it's it's a sort of,
and they're coming in ahead of
the
the ball. I mean, sometimes they're taking out players who haven't even joined the ruck or even joined the breakdown. I mean, it's a mess. But you cannot say that was a rugby incident. A rugby incident is when there's no blame to attach. There is blame to attach. Ireland's methods at the breakdown have been illegal for a long, long time, and we've highlighted it many, many times.
Brent, they're not alone, though. I mean,
they're not alone, but they are by far the most consistent practitioners of it.
Quite possibly they are, but they're not alone. There are people being cleared out sort of illegally off the ball all the time. It's not just what's happening at the ruck, it's people being cleared out on the edges of it and dumped back about sort of 3 or 4 meters,
It made me laugh on Sunday. Do you remember, within about 3 minutes, Finn Smith and the Italian tight head both got done for off their feet at the breakdown, and it was a correct decision. But if they were going to be done for that, you'd have to blow the whistle 40 times in an Ireland match. I mean, it was very, very minor stuff off the feet, but it was technically correct. But if you don't stamp down on it early in the match, they are just going to take the mickey the entire time.
I think we're all agreeing that it was not deliberate from Tadhg Beirne in terms of him going for Dupont's knees, thinking, this is the best player in the world. We'd be doing ourselves a favour if he was off.
There's no sign that it is a deliberate attempt to target him. No, I don't.
No, but it wasn't a rugby incident. There is culpability there.
Well, no,
I agree with that too.
Go on, Alex.
I think it's a rugby incident. That happens all the time. If you're having a scrum half that's dipping his head in an exit on the ruck, when everyone knows those exits are double teams, that's where your big forwards are. It's going to happen. He's over the ball. It's a good clear out. There's nowhere else they're supposed to hit him.
Well, it's not a good clear out. You're meant to you're meant to wrap and you're meant to stay on your feet. It's an illegal clear out.
No one wraps
it's
anymore.
Where the laws,
you hit and you clear out past
illegal
the ball.
Clear out.
Alex, it's where the laws. Easier. It's where the laws have, the ambiguity in the laws and what's allowed and what isn't. I mean, players are in a difficult place if the laws are shifting all the time and changing all the time. That much I'd accept. But the law as it existed was a better law than this. And the law at the ruck basically was stay on your feet. And the law now is don't stay on your feet.
How otherwise you're constantly giving the defensive side so much power. As soon as they're over the ball, what am I supposed to do? Can't hit them. Because you're not going to stand there and go like for like and try and get rid of Jack Moore. And you've got to hit him. You're always going to be not off your feet. It's when you're coming in at a sort of height, but when you're hitting and then up and then over. Because otherwise it'd be a penalty every single ruck, wouldn't it? But speed of ball is.
Oops.
Oh. He was making such a good point that his computer couldn't handle it. We'll keep going while Alex reconnects. In two minds about it. I think people keep calling it a rugby incident, and I think I do agree in terms of it within the letter of the laws of rugby. It's not an illegal clear out, and France's citations aren't probably going to go anywhere and probably shouldn't go anywhere.
But it is an illegal clear out, Ollie. It is. It's 100% an illegal clear out. You can have that without it being a deliberate attack on his knee, but it's wholly illegal. And there's some great footage up on Twitter yesterday, which has got a different angle on it. It's 100% illegal.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's either illegal or it isn't. And in my opinion, it's illegal.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of comments around it. I mean, there have already been plenty of comments around it. Look, I think it's symptomatic of a refereeing bias, and I think Galtier is understandably upset. He's obviously lost the best player in the world. Hey, Alex.
Sorry about.
No, all good. I was saying you were making such a good point that your computer couldn't handle it.
It couldn't.
I'd say, Ollie, just one thing. It's symptomatic of bad lawmaking, and there is a lot of bad lawmaking going on at the moment. World Rugby is culpable for shifts in the game that haven't benefited it.
Well, look,
and the ruck's one of them.
I think we've dwelled on this point enough. I think let's talk about the.
Can I make one other point about it? I mean, this is the world's best player. He never goes down injured. He was rushed off the pitch so quickly by the ref. He had to walk off the bloody pitch with an ACL. The next day, Ollie Lawrence does an Achilles, the second most serious injury behind an ACL. And we get a 6-7 minute stoppage, and he's taken off on the old cart and treated properly. I don't know what was going on there in that. He couldn't get him off the pitch quick enough, to be honest.
To be fair, having done my ACL, you are in a position where you can hobble pretty well. And Achilles,
walk off.
You're complete.
Well, I did it, and I couldn't when I did mine, I can tell you.
Well, what's wrong with you then, Brendan, huh? You're no Antoine Dupont.
Well, that joined the rest of the world there.
It's lucky that we're not going to miss him too long, are we? He's not going to miss too many games, which is good.
It's decent timing. There'll be eyes on him when he comes back. And I hate all these questions. Will he be the same player? Because I don't think we want to. I hope so, because I don't think we want to ask ourselves that question. We want at least another 5 years of watching him. Alex, I've got to ask you about Louis Bielle-Biarrey. That try. I don't know if you remember Gareth Bale's goal for Real Madrid.
Off the pitch. Yeah,
it was kind of the rugby equivalent, but I mean, he's been the player of the tournament so far. I don't know about you.
Yeah, he's an exciting player, isn't he? He seems to be in the right spot at the right time. Don't get me wrong; it would be amazing to play behind that pack and that that Rolls Royce of Dupont and Entomac, and he's having a few run-ins, but some of the tries he's scoring, he's got a great deft touch, isn't he? His chip, his kick through. They're never too long. They're never overhit. They're worst case scenario that they're pushing them over for a scrum or something like that over the try line. But he's got wheels, isn't he? For a guy that's probably about 75 kilos, he's whacking well above his weight, and he's got the skill set with it, isn't he? And him, Pinot, they're just on the same page, aren't they? They're a lethal back three with Ramos. They're a proper team, France. They absolutely, for me, I thought they absolutely destroyed Ireland in terms of every aspect. If we look at the stats, they gave away twice as many penalties as Ireland, made twice as many tackles, but scoreline is very reflective. So he'll be player of the tournament, and I hope he does score this weekend, because he'd be the first person to score every game, I think, isn't it? Or something like that. So
the 5 nations, I think 4 nations. Gregor did it once, one season.
Yes, it's tough to do.
5 nations, I think you're right, actually.
Is Tommy Freeman also in that bracket?
Tommy Freeman will be the first Englishman to do it, and I think that's including the 5 nations. So I think there are a couple up for grabs this weekend, but no, I mean, LBB has, I think he's excelled. That kicking piece is massive, because I think a lot of wingers, when they're kicking through, will often put a lot of welly on it. And a kick really stood out to me from the game against Italy, where it was almost like I'm going to use a golf analogy. You're by the green and essentially have very little ground to work with. So you literally have to land it almost a foot in front of you and then just let the ball dribble out. No one really does that. And for some reason, at the age of 21, 22, he has the intelligence to not just put boot to ball and guarantee the territory, but actually say, well, I'm essentially dropping the ball 2 yards in front of me here, but then I recollect it. It's unbelievable rugby IQ.
Yeah, what he does. So defenses nowadays, the fullback comes in the line a lot earlier now. So he would know how early, and then he'd always know the work rate of the blind winger, because nowadays the defenses rely on that blind winger for those chips. They've got to cover an awful lot of ground, and obviously his kicks are so on the money, it doesn't give them chance to even get across. That's how good of skill that is, running flat out. And then he has the gas to run off the field, back round, and beat his scrum half, who had a 20-meter head start inside him. He made it look so simple. That I'll tell you now, when you're running down the wing and you go for a kick, you're absolutely knackered. You're like, geez, am I going to get there? I don't know. So he's an exciting player, and yeah, he's come alive now, isn't he? 17 tries in 18 games. We're looking at like Julian Sevilla sort of guys. Try scoring records here, aren't we? A game for game, a try for a game, which is pretty impressive, because I don't think too many Northern Hemisphere teams wingers are scoring that many tries. So,
and very few cheap tries. I mean, they're all against quality opposition, aren't they?
Yeah.
As was Sevilla and the Kiwis.
Yeah, I think if
Sorry,
tries this weekend, they become that's a record in terms of most tries in the game. And I certainly wouldn't put that past them doing it in Paris either. Sorry, Alex, you look like you're about to say something.
No, I was going to say on Louis Bielle-Biarrey, he second or third caps in the World Cup. He had a bit of a howler against, I think it was South Africa. They targeted him an awful lot in the air. He was jamming in. He was making really poor decisions. But that was after his second or third cap. But where he's come to now, he's on another level now. I think he's operating at a very, very high level. And that's all credit to himself. And obviously, people around, it's quite easy to get yourself into a tough situation, especially after a loss like that in a World Cup. So, got to give him credit.
Also, quality of opposition on that occasion, Colby and Aronson would give any wing, defensively food for thought, I think. So, but it's great. The thing that's great is to see, you referenced 75 kg, he's a whippet. And it's just great to see players who aren't, giants having a giant impact on the game. It's fantastic, and more power to his elbow. Hope he gets the record.
I mean, we saw 2 tries of the tournament at the weekend. I think that one, and then Ross Vincent's try against England, and that was also kick-started by the other whippet in the tournament, Ange Capuozzo. There's certainly room for people who can just click into 6th gear like that, which makes it very exciting every time they get the ball.
No substitute for pace, is there, for speed? It's the old adage. If you've got it, you can damage. If the team knows how to use you.
It's interesting how Italy used Vincent. I think and Exeter, in a way, I'm not sure get as much out of him in that regard.
I've seen him score one good long-range try for Exeter, and they know he's quick, but they don't seem to work him into space.
And he's, his pace is absolutely exceptional.
He's Sam Simmons-esque. When we were Exeter at the time, we used Sam in situations where we were putting him one-on-one with the back in the midfield or out the back. We used to put him out the back of a lot of runners, which would give you that half gap, and he was just so quick. With Vincent, they don't probably do that enough, and then when you have seen him score, he's scoring as soon as he breaks the line. He's more or less going to score. He's that quick. I don't think there's many back row players in the world that can do that. Other than
they put him out the back a couple of times from lineouts and stuff, and they didn't get it to him. It broke down. The play broke down. So I think they've got it in their mind to get him in space one-on-one. But it just didn't really, except for that one occasion when it worked magnificently. They haven't really worked out fully how to get him involved.
Yeah, he left Marcus Smith for dead, didn't he? Smith was chasing him, and he got nowhere near him.
It was nearly as good a try as the one in Dublin, and that's saying something because that was a cracker.
Those are the 2 tries at the top. I think I forget who scored it now, but Blair Murray's assist, was it Faletau that scored it?
Yeah.
That would have been up there for try of the tournament if that stood as well. I enjoyed seeing. I can't remember who Blair Murray bumped now, but seeing a 5'8" fullback bump someone, anyone,
and then do Colin Jackson. That was pretty spectacular.
To say, I put a flag out there for the 2 backhand offloads that ended with Boudin going over for France, because for a loose head prop to produce the first one, and then Luku, as he was hit by 2 tacklers to produce the second. I thought, again, exceptional.
Yeah, it was a weekend for some cracking tries.
By the way, you mentioned him just there, Faletau, before we move on from Wales. My God, he plays about 5 matches a year now, doesn't he, Talupi? And the last 2 matches, and on Saturday in particular, he is really coming into form. I mean, he looks a Lions contender again. He's got so much credit. I mean, Wales have been missing him very, very badly. But he just, the full 80 minutes, and last 20 minutes, he's pumping stronger than ever. I don't know where he gets that fitness from.
I said it before the tournament. If Toby Faletau gets back fit playing, he's in the Lions. There's no other 8 like him. I think he makes things. You think how much pressure he was on the base of the scrum, just little things like that. He makes look so easy. He's always on the end of everything. He's very good at a 15-meter channel. His tackling, his carrying, his offloading ability. There's no other 8. Would you pick him over Ben Earl? Yes. Would you pick him over Doris? Probably as well. Do you know what I mean? That's how high.
Huge match.
But does he? I mean, the big issue is how long's his longest run of games over the last few seasons. He might have 5 or 6 games in him, and then he's got an injury.
Well, we'll see. But on form, I don't see how he has to come into the equation.
Yeah. I mean, Wales are not, like, say what you will about the talent in the squad. The back row is somewhere where you guys have never really been short of talent. People said Jack Morgan's becoming a bit of a Sergio Parise, which feels unfair on the rest of the Wales team. However, in terms of his Herculean performances, he's obviously been your best operator for the entire tournament, and seemingly every time he puts on the shirt.
Oh, he's a freak, mate. I can't speak any more highly of Jack. The day I got into the Ospreys after 2 training sessions, I remember getting a lift back with Gareth Anscombe, and I said straight, I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Like, he was, even in training, he was just, you could just tell he was always in the right place, just oozing class. The pass, he just read the game so well, and then he's just gone another level now. Like, his involvements in games are on. I know obviously Wales are defending probably a little bit more than they would want to, and he's obviously going to be involved a lot more. But his involvements in games and big moments, he's higher than everyone. So he's guaranteed to be in that Lions squad for me.
And is he starting now for you as well?
I've always said it. I prefer him than I got nothing. I played against Josh van der Fleer plenty of times, and I played with and obviously against Jack as well. And I would pick Jack as my first choice 7.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement, to be honest. I think we've sort of said on this podcast, Van der Fleer has not been operating at the peak of his powers since he won World Player of the Year. He sort of came back into form around the autumn, and I don't think he stood out this Six Nations. So I think if you call the Six Nations a Lions audition, I think Jack Morgan's got one hand on that 7 shirt, personally. Jack Willis may have something to say about it, is the only other thing.
Yeah, I love Jack Willis. I think he's an absolute worldie as well. But you put Jack Morgan in that team that Jack Willis is in and Josh van der Fleer's in. How could he be, That's what you got to look at that.
I think that Van der Fleer had a pretty quiet game against the French by his standards. I think you look back to last season's European Cup final and the battle royal that he and Jack Willis had. Van der Fleer's still got a lot in the tank, and I would say that I like Jack Morgan a great deal. And I don't say that he won't be in Test contention for the Lions, because I think he is that good. But I wouldn't write off Van der Fleer at all, and particularly not with Andy Farrell as the head coach.
No, and there's obviously a chance for Van der Fleer to put his hand up for Leinster as well as the season goes on. While we're on the subject of the Lions, Alex, let's get your Lions back 3 really quickly as things currently stand.
I think it's hard not to put Kinghorn full back. Just with his all-round, his aerial game is massive, and that's something Australia would be pretty good at, is in the air. So we're going to need someone, up there. Blair Murray's putting his hand up, I'll be honest. Probably Keenan as well will go. And then the old thing of Marcus Smith, what is he, a 10 or a 15? Or, so he'd come in that conversation. Wingers, I think it'd be hard to go away from James Lowe, left wing. Yeah. I think I'd put him instead of Duan Manamir just for his probably left foot option, his offloading game, as strong as Duan. But those boys can only play left wing, which is interesting now, because that's why Ireland is struggling for a right wing, aren't they? So right winger is a tricky one. For me, I think if he's fit, it was Fair Bosa.
Yeah.
If he was fit, I'd chuck him in. He's an absolute weapon. He is like, no one can tackle him. He's a serious player. So if he was fit, he would be him. But if you go now in terms of who's fit in the Six Nations, Freeman would be my right winger.
Freeman has really come into his own this tournament. I mean, he's obviously given an interview recently saying he may come into the midfield. We'll get into whether we hope England will do that this weekend or not. But
at 13,
at 13, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely a 13. Yeah, he's going to be he'd be a tasty 13, I think.
I agree that he's a 13, but then you lose his kick chase. And in terms of kick retrievability and how much, obviously England kick more than any other team on the planet. All of a sudden, you're left with Ollie Slight at home, who's obviously a little bit more diminutive, and then potentially whoever else you bring, whether it's a Caden Murley, an Elliot Daly, who's also played on the wing this tournament, or a favour. Guys, I want to.
Sure, I call Slight home diminutive.
Diminutive in terms of height, not more diminutive than Tommy Freeman.
Yeah,
but. You lose that part of his game at 13, which does make it slightly less appealing, given how key that has been for England this tournament.
I think you can. So what you do if Freeman is 13 is you change your kicking strategy. You don't kick off 9 44 times like England do. You go off 10 a little bit more with the high bombs. If he's in that 13 position, he's in no better position to get up in the air. Winger is either. That you're winning probably more loose ball there in terms of that transition. So you change your kicking strategy if you have him 13. So you look to go where he is, because that's all pretty much England 13 do anyway, isn't it? That's all Slade.
And Australia have got their best aerial man at 13, haven't they, in the new Wonder Kid? So there's a precedent
exactly.
there.
And you think how many times he had, ball in the air, how many times he was winning it with the little flicks, and then you got your winger on the ball there, and straight away you're on transition attack, boom, straight away. So it'd be interesting to see how they do that.
Well, let's open that bag of worms then. Who would everyone pick at 13 for England this Saturday? Ollie Lawrence has obviously very sadly torn his Achilles. We've got Oscar Beard, Henry Slade, Elliot Daly, who have played 13 more than Freeman. Would we like to see Freeman come in and just pull the plug?
I think they'll go Elliot Daly, because it worked pretty well when he came on anyway. And I just don't see at this stage of the tournament Steve Borthwick deciding this is the match to experiment with Tommy Freeman at 13. But I would love to see him at 13.
it should have happened in the autumn. It's a wasted opportunity. Certainly a game again. I know that the Italian centres are very tasty, but certainly a missed opportunity against Italy. I would have said to have blooded him there. And we keep on missing the opportunities. It's been in the talking shop for God knows how long. I mean, it would be good if there are reservations about playing him there, if somebody in the England coaching team said what they are.
Yeah.
Because we're just sort of going around the houses at the moment.
Yeah. Who will play 12 then?
I'd imagine it'll still be Dingwall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally
Slady.
Possible. Yeah.
I think the feeling
they're probably going to look to kick behind a lot. I think.
The feeling is that Slade at 12 should have happened probably about 10 years ago rather than less than 10 months ago. So that in itself feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity. And his move to 12, it kind of feels a little bit too late.
Yeah. A very English problem. Square pegs in round holes all the time.
Yeah. And that's why I think just pull the plug and say Tommy Freeman has played 13 in important games for Northampton. This is an important game, but it's a fairly new Welsh midfield as well. I think this weekend is as good a weekend as any, to be honest, given the fanciful chances that we actually end up winning the championship too.
No, that isn't happening, Ollie.
But that emphasis on fanciful.
You're manifesting that.
No, absolutely not. I want to see France win and win well. No, look, if the French win with a bonus point in Paris, then that's game over. If the French win without a bonus point and England win with one, then England will have to win by 80 plus points. Alex, I think that's unlikely.
I'd be.
You'd probably be fuming.
Saturday night would be a tasty night if we lost by 80.
You will be very happy to win by 1 point. It's Wales in Cardiff, and 4 wins out of 5 would be a good season for England. They're not. I don't think they're even thinking of the championship. They're just thinking of getting over the line against Wales somehow.
I think England aren't trying to look to score a point a minute.
No.
If France lose and England win with a bonus point, England win.
Yeah.
If France if France and England lose and Ireland win, then the Irish win. If England win without a bonus point and the Irish win with one, then it comes down to points difference. England's difference is currently 7 points better than Ireland's. So obviously then it just becomes there's a little bit of maths going on. I personally love the permutation. I know you all look sick of me having just read all of that out, which is absolutely fair enough. Alex, I've got to ask your honest take on Wales and whether that performance is coming. That first half performance against Ireland, with the caveat that Ringrose was off the field. Can they sustain for 80 minutes? You guys obviously get up for it at home against England. You'll be licking your lips a little bit. A team that's maybe a little bit there for the taking.
Yeah, I think emotionally we're going to be there. We're going to be all overing that first half. I think we'll probably be similar to Ireland performance. I just think England's bench and I guess know-how winning the last couple of games will come in handy. I think especially the last 10, 15 minutes of the game. I think that's something where it'd be sort of a role reversal from what we saw. We just didn't bring anything emotionally against Scotland. That first 40 in Scotland just blew us away. So it's going to be there. It's going to be a few minor details changed, I think, in the game, but I just think England have just got that knack of sort of physicality-wise. I think they're probably going to be a little bit over the 80 minutes. I think then it'll be a close game. I really do think it's going to be close, and my heart is saying that could we nick it if we're in, with 5-10 minutes to go, and England might get a bit shaky. There are a lot, if you think about it, a lot of these younger boys for England as well they won't play in an atmosphere like they have on the weekend. It's going to be a serious atmosphere, and that's another thing, where I know you're talking about the championship, they're not thinking about it. I'm telling you now, they are thinking about it. So that will creep in a little bit in the game, and maybe we can sort of reap the rewards, I guess, from maybe a few missed opportunities and from England. We're just sort of staying in it. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I really hope, we put a performance like we did against Ireland and we just throw everything at England. We've got nothing to lose. The pressure's on them. And I think that's probably how the game's going to go.
That 30 points to 3 win 12 years ago, were you guys thinking about the championship going in?
Yeah, we knew we were going to win though. We were just so we were on such good momentum. I remember all week we trained terribly. We were awful. We were all just so nervous for the game. We were like, right, we just need Saturday to come. Because we know if we turn up Saturday, we're going to beat. We just knew we had them sort of mentally already. That's like what it felt like anyway. And
it was very clear cut then, wasn't it, Alex? You had to win by 9 points, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was quite a simple equation.
I think we'd stuck in first half. It was pretty close, and then suddenly second half, we sort of just played a bit more rugby, and it just sort of escalated from there. Then, and I think England completely sort of capitulated really, and I guess Dan Biggar was pretty good putting us around in the right areas. A couple of drop kicks as well, which were key penalties at the right time, and that's all it takes. Is that sort of 5-10 minute little patch, and the game can just suddenly be gone, and that was it. Then I remember playing with 10 minutes to go, thinking we've just won this championship, and I've never ever had that feeling before. In an international game, it's very rare that you get that.
Pretty sweet.
I seem to remember scrum dominance and England conceding a stack of penalties, particularly at the set piece
in the first half.
Yeah, Adam Jones had a blinder. Richard Hibbert. These are serious front row players who were just they were. We had once you have the ref as well on our side. I think he was seeing the right pictures from our side. That everything just sort of fell in place. So it'd be nice if that happened on Saturday, but I can't see it.
I suppose when thinking about the championship part, beating us by 9 12 years ago was probably more realistic than us beating you by 80 on Saturday. So I don't think England can be thinking to quite the same extent. Guys, I guess let's get general predictions for the weekend. In terms of, do we all think France are going to end up lifting that trophy? in Paris? Presumably the trophy will be in Paris because it's looking likely.
Yes, I think so. We did our predictions 2 months ago. I think we all predicted France then, didn't we? No reason to change that. I think Scotland will go well. You know, we haven't had the full 80-minute performance from Scotland yet, have we? And they've won away in Paris against the odds. I'm trying to think, a few years back. They have it in them, but I think France will be on a mission. They'll still be on the we've got to win this for Antoine type mindset that they took into the second half in Dublin. And I think 15, 20 points. God knows what I predicted 2 months ago, but I think France will win going away.
Yeah.
I can tell you what you predicted 2 months ago. Exactly 15 points. So you're very consistent. There we go. Kano, do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I think that one thing I would say about Scotland is that if they, I mean, I take what Alex says about be great to play behind the French pack. But if Scotland play as they have during the Six Nations, they're going to have or should have a serious number of their backs in any Lions squad at the moment.
Yeah,
because they look to be the most coherent backline in the tournament, and probably including France. And France have those moments of sort of magic and individual brilliance, but in terms of actual sort of classic backline play and linking, Scotland, I think, take first prize at the moment.
But just up front, they will, especially if France are going 7-1 again. I have worries for that Scotland pack, which has always been a bit underweight. Certainly relative to Ireland.
I mean, they've. I think it's the last but one time they played in Paris. I think that they won. But I've got
France got a red card, didn't they?
Yeah,
the prop.
Howard, the prop got sent off.
Yeah.
So that sort of tends to slant things pretty heavily. But look, I mean, I don't see Scotland being able to derail France, and certainly I think that their pack will be on the back foot throughout. Yeah,
I agree. If you want my opinion, I think Scotland struggled with the Ireland physicality. They are definitely going to struggle with the French one. So, and if they go 7-1 again, they just Scotland, like you said, they got a great back line when they do get their starters flying. They were good at the breakdown on the weekend against Wales. I thought Richie was pretty good over the ball. They're going to have to be twice as good as that all over the field because France, they are, like you said, at home. Expectation is going to be huge. So, and I know for a fact Sean Edwards will be getting stuck into more weeks. So, because I don't think he'd be too happy giving away those tries at the end of the game last week. So, it'd be tough for Scotland, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit
of
it'll be a bit of a cheat code bringing Emmanuel Meafu off the bench if they do so again against a tired Scottish pack. So I'm not particularly envious of that situation. I think
what's interesting, Ollie, one of the things that there's this idea of this sort of juggernaut French pack, and certainly they've got an element of that with guys like Meafu. But the two locks that they had playing starting at the weekend, Guillard, the new guy, and Flamont, they're both athletes.
Yeah,
they're
brilliant.
both terrific athletes. So their back row, Jegu, nipping in at centre as well. They've got a lot of athleticism in that pack.
Yeah, they've got a lot of forwards that can play centre.
Oh, Malvaca could play centre tomorrow. No problem.
Yeah, he definitely could. But Gelange has done it before for France. Obviously, Sekou Makalu is out of the pick fold, but he played wing against South Africa a couple of years ago. That was pretty remarkable.
Yeah. I played wing against him before.
Have you?
I think when he was at Stad, he was lining up against me on the wing. I was like, what are you doing, mate? A bit lost here.
I think Flamont was a fly half growing up as well. So, they've got all sorts of interesting stories and side skills, all of them. So, yeah, it's frightening. And I'm glad you mentioned Jegu, Nick, as well, because he was phenomenal and he deserved his try in the second half. Let's touch base on the Predictions League. Alex, the reason I asked you to do predictions is you're part of a special guest team alongside the other special guests during the podcast. We had Lewis Liner on last week who backed Italy to win. So you guys aren't doing too well off that basis.
Oh, come on, what's he doing?
He had to. Well, you backed the Welsh to win in your prediction. I think he had to. So look, you're currently bringing up the rear, and you probably needed a differential prediction. You've obviously backed Wales to win at home. Brendan, you and I are second bottom on 65. And then Nick and Rich are actually, Nick, you're in first place on 70 points. So, Nick, you've gone quite close for the England game, 18 points to 16. Alex, you're the only one backing the Welsh, but I think you've got to make something happen based on your predecessors having let you down. So something will happen, you go significantly up or even further down. So we'll have to see.
We'll see. I think the bookies had Wales plus 16 or something like that, didn't they? So I think, is it? I didn't think it would be that. I think it would be a lot closer than we think.
Are you gonna be there on Saturday?
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, bit of hospitality beforehand.
Nice.
No, I might take my little boy maybe. It'll be a good day. It's gonna be looking forward to it. A lot of mates playing both sides, so yeah, looking forward to it.
100%. I mean, yeah, it's Ireland, Italy 2:15, 4:45 for the England-Wales game, and then 8 o'clock. So obviously strap yourselves in. Next Monday, we've got a line selection meeting, which obviously has a confidential amount of bearing on the actual line squad that's picked. But do join us for that. Alex, massively appreciate you joining us again. And yeah, enjoy Saturday.
Will do. Cheers, lads.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Rugby Paper podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on whichever podcast platform you use and recommend the show to your friends. The Rugby Paper is available to buy every Sunday, and to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe through our print, digital and online options at therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions. That's therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions to get all our content for as little as 14p per day.